Hi, and welcome back to Real Estate Made Simple. I'm your host, Rick Bosley, the owner and operator of 3L Coaching LLC and the Bosley Team Real Estate Solutions at Keller Williams. It's been my pleasure to be your host here for this podcast. If you're listening to this for the first time or long time, welcome back. Today, we're going to share with you an episode that my coach had interviewing me a couple weeks back. My coach, John Sprague, with Never Settle Coaching and affiliated and powered by MAPS Coaching. I've had a coach for real estate and business since I started in this industry 12 years ago, and I don't intend to stop. I feel it's really valuable because we're always on a journey. We're always growing, facing new obstacles, and we never get stagnant. So if you like the episode, do me a favor and just drop a comment or like it or subscribe. We do have an episode dropping every Thursday, and I'll stop talking and let you get on to the interview. Thanks so much.
Let's go ahead and get to rolling here. Rick, I appreciate you being with us today, man. I've got a great deal of respect for you, as I know that you've got a pretty storied background. I'll hit some of the highlights here that I know that you've had in the past, and I'm hoping that you're able to go ahead and kind of brush in some of the fine strokes here. But you've got a pretty decorated past here within Keller Williams, holding a number of different leadership roles, really immersing yourself into a lot of the different trainings that are out there. And so much so that you've actually become a KW trainer, which is no easy feat. And then advanced it to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and build out a coaching organization because I see some gaps in what's needed in the market center and really in the market for that matter. And you know what's crazy? At the center of this has always been, and I saw this as I kind of looked at a couple of the different your pages and stuff like that as I was preparing for our conversation today. At the center of that was always the client, meaning the real estate client, the buyer or the seller, and so it's kind of interesting how it's kind of gone full circle. And our conversation today that I'm most curious about is around that. So, I just dove right in there because I'm excited about this. What I'm excited to talk about is what's going on with the listing opportunities that are out there. Is it effort or is it opportunity? But before we get into some of the particulars there, again, I do think it makes a difference who we hear things from. So I just touched on it in a minute, but let me hear from you, man. Give me your life story in a Dixie cup. Give me the scoop, brother.
Yeah, no, thanks, John, and always love talking with you. And I've been in MAPS coaching since the beginning of my Keller Williams career in 2011, and usually about every year and a half tops, I grow tired of my MAPS coach. And we've already passed that. So
we're past it. I'm on borrowed time, brother. I'm playing with the house's money.
We're beyond, but it goes the testament of kind of the value add and the different perspectives that you continue to challenge me. So thanks for that. I started real estate after a stint as a career in DCF, child welfare, with zero desire ever to be a realtor or in real estate. It was get the 4-year degree, go into medical sales, go into medical something. I hit a ceiling plateau, 28 years old, in the deep depth of recession in 2010. I decided now's a good time to get into real estate. Ignorance was truly bliss. I didn't know that the market was in the second biggest economic collapse in this century. I just knew I was tired of where I was at and time to make a move. So I went in with blinders on, which is probably the best thing I could have done. Didn't create any limiting beliefs or any limitations around it. Got licensed, started real estate in December 2010. By July 2011, I was named team leader of the office at
Wow.
28 years old.
So if I'm doing the math in this, give it 7 months. Wow.
7 months in, when I look back at the track record, I had 8 closings. I had 3 more pending. So it was a great 7 months. I did open houses a couple times a weekend. I went to Bold. I time blocked. I lead gen. I did everything that you want. And that's what people noticed, right? So I was recognized as the team leader because of the effort put in. The result wasn't there. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. In my first year, that was a massive limiting belief for me as a team leader. I went from last week asking the top agents for open house opportunities to this week sitting down and coaching, consulting them. It was a massive limiting belief for me. Anyways, fast forward, did that for 7 years, grew to be the #1 office in Central Florida, market share, netted 100 plus agents, 6 years straight, became opportunity to be an investor. I'm an investor in 4 market centers throughout Florida. And 2019, since I never quite got to scratch the itch of being in sales and being in real estate, I always wondered what if. And I spent the last 7 years, I'll say, mastering the models in MREA and one thing. And I went to bold 17 times. I can quote verbatim every bold law, the script in a role play. When you teach it for that long, they say you retain it twice as much when you teach it versus do it. And I did it for 7 years. So truly got my PhD in real estate. 2019, gave it a shot, went back cold turkey, started sales. In 2020 was in the top 500 out of 20,000 in all of Central Florida in real estate. Hired that assistant, did it for a year and a half. Coaching and training opportunity came along. It was a passion I always had. I saw the challenge I had as a team leader. So that's when 3L coaching was born. Rather than leaving sales, I said, let's do it simultaneously. So my executive assistant got licensed. She is now one of my lead agents. We have another agent. We have a couple of virtual assistants. The team year to date has 6 million closed, 5 million pending. And that's with me being at level 6, spending about 25 hours a week coaching and training and about 10 hours a week doing sales and running that operation. On top of that, I've got a 4-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. I coach 2 baseball teams. We have 2 rental properties, got an Airbnb last year. So it's extremely important to me that life by design, home at dinner, leaving office at 4 o'clock most days, rarely working a weekend, taking vacations, going on spring break, doing the camping trips. That success does not have to be at the cost and at the expense of your personal life. That's the journey I'm on right now.
That's awesome, man. That I'll tell you, like, we've had conversations and I knew all those pieces in different areas, but when you hear it kind of in that fashion, got a lot going on. And, the other thing that I take away here is it reinforces the clarity that you have around a balanced growth. Right.
Mhm.
And this is something that's been a pretty hot topic with the number of conversations that we've been having is that, at Family Reunion, Gary, he had it on a billboard, right? The market of more equals the market of elimination, same font. But what people saw was the market of more really big font and the market of elimination really tiny, really tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what I'm seeing that do is it's starting to bleed into the things that people care about the most and what they value the most and impeding that as far as their faith, their family, their health, their friendships, and their wealth, right? And so, I gave you a handful of questions, and I knew that this was going to be more of an organic conversation than some sort of scripted out kind of a deal. I'm already curious. You've got 5 million pending. You hit your best month ever with listings taken in February. You got all these different things going on personally and professionally. So when it comes to the market of more equals the market of elimination, what does that mean to you? And what are some practical examples that you could share with us here to where you're actually not giving up those things that you value the most?
Yeah, to me, what resonates, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to be this message, but what I'm hearing is the 80-20 principle and clarity around that. It's do more with less. It's what is the 20%? Where are we spending our time, our energy, and our efforts to yield us greatest results? And most realtors, including myself, and it's still a work in progress, we don't know because we don't actually track it, or we don't have a system or a plan, and we're in this survival of the fittest and more, and people stop at the more, and they just think to double production means you have to work twice as hard. My first instinct is, who else can do this besides me? And that was a learned question.
What do you mean by that? Tell me about that. The learned question.
A learned question is, as a doer, as a high achiever, if it was my idea, I would take action and just do it. And it would be harder for me to train someone to do this. It's easier if I just do it because it's only a 10-minute task. That was learned because now I don't care how small the task is. The task in itself isn't what occupies. The brain space is what occupies. And there is a leader, and I heard this when he's like, when you're hiring someone on your team, if it keeps you up at night, you still own the job. You truly haven't released ownership if you're still worried about it. And so just because I might not be doing something because I feel like I've leveraged it out, if I still worry about, is it getting done, I still own it. And I need it to be gone. So it's when I no longer have to think about it, Do we need course correction? Sure, right? For instance, I'm thinking about just leveraging in our personal life, our landscaper. He comes every week. I keep paying him. He's on auto pay. I don't worry about it because I've set up the bank. The bank is my leverage. I don't have to worry about writing checks. He shows up. I don't have to worry about my lawn. I don't sleep and wonder at night when my lawn get mowed. It's done. I don't own that job anymore. Right. And I think oftentimes we feel like we're leveraged, even on the first surface as an agent, you might leverage out your transaction coordination. Well, if you're constantly worrying and micromanaging that TC and wondering if and checking deadlines, you haven't leveraged that out. You're just paying someone else to type keyboard entries. So figure out what conversations or expectations or standards need to change so you are truly leveraged. When you can free up your mind and your brain space, you're more present to the things that matter. Whether it's present at dinner, present at your kid's ball game, or present when you're doing your lead generation with your clients.
Pretty major stuff. I agree with you 100%. I think we underestimate the brain space and the thought that goes around that, right? It all goes to the activity. Well, I spent 10, 15 minutes doing it. Well, really? Right? How much idle thought were you putting towards it? We definitely undervalue that idle thought. And I like the way you put it there too, and not even so much idle thought, but being present for the things that you most want to be present for. Right.
Yeah.
Heavy. Love it, love it, love it. All right. So I'm going to reel us in here a little bit. So now February, you had your best month ever with listings taken. Right. And so the first thing I wanted to ask is like, where did this thought process just come from? Did it just show up? Hey, February is an awesome month, or was there some sort of thought, some sort of dedicated attention you put towards this? And if so, what stimulated that?
Yeah. And when you asked me to be on here, I told you it wasn't any magic marketing piece that I put out. It wasn't a viral YouTube.
All right, I'm out. I'm done. We're done. We're done.
There. I'm sorry you can't take the pill and just wait 30 days. And that's so much of what we want. And we know it because when we go to family reunion last month, every single social media class was standing room only.
Great point.
In every single wealth building and profit class, you could sit wherever you wanted. Right? It tells you where people are going. They're going for the easy solution. I don't have it, John. And when I look back of what happened, a lot of 2022, I was spending my time dedicated and growing 3L coaching. You felt it in our conversations.
100%.
My time, it was a building mode, right? When we think about the market center phases, you have launch, growth, and achievement. And we were in launch phase, and we reinvented it 2 or 3 times. And with that, I'll tell you what matters most by what shows up on your calendar, right? That's what was showing up on my calendar. And I think a lot of it, looking back retrospective, was because my agent on my team was my executive assistant for 2 years, and she was able to pick up the pieces of what I wasn't doing. And she had that loyalty partner-employee relationship still. In September, we hired a young gun to join the office. And I say young gun, he's emerging talent, just so much potential. And all of a sudden, I looked in the mirror going, we've got to up our game, right? I can't just let Jennifer pick up the pieces of what I'm missing anymore, because now I've got to go put up what I've been preaching and make sure we're leveraged and really earn my keep as a team leader. And not only did I take a closer focus on how are we holding them accountable, what are our systems, what's broken, and not letting things be entrepreneurial, getting purposeful, it also created a really cool, healthy rivalry between the two of them. Even from restructuring our environment, right? We used to have just a mediocre shared office space till we got our own office, standing desks, dual monitors, time blocks in front of us. Our environment matters. And setting up that infrastructure. You started off the call with at the epicenter of everything that has been, it's been the buyer and seller. And it really is true, because so much of my coaching and training program, all it is me sharing what we're doing in the Bosley team. And the Bosley team gets to be the beta test for everything we do. And if and when it works, I make it general enough that everyone can just plug and play into it.
Love it.
Every morning. Go ahead.
No. Keep going there.
A defining moment conversation was last December. You and I had a call, and we were heavily talking about coaching and training. You said, hey, time out. We're wrapping up the year. Let's talk about your sales real quick. It was mid-December. I said, how many appointments have you gone on this month? I was like, I don't know. And it wasn't me. I leveraged it out, right? I'm level 6. But the fact that you asked me a question about the key element of the numbers I must hit and I didn't know it was massive hypocrisy in terms of being a coach. So we put the implementation and going, all right, so how are you going to find out? And it started with the daily huddle. Every morning, 8:15, we're going to have a 5-minute conversation about appointments. And that's it, right? That's how it started with our own team. And then it inspired to being, well, if it's important to have this call with my own team, then let's make this for everybody who I'm doing one-on-one coaching with. So now every morning from 8:15 to 8:30, not all my coaching clients who choose to be accountable to that level, hop on. We have a 30-second conversation about your appointments, appointments needed. What are you going to do today? And it's one of the most powerful things because at 8:30, you hang up with clarity. The same way that if you have a weight loss goal, if you weigh yourself every day, you know if you're on track or if you had a bad day. And if you had a bad day and you're truly committed to the goal, you're going to do a quick course correction.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's when you say, how did we get this February's 6 listings taken? And you asked, have you ever, I've never taken 6 listings. Now we just started sales again in mid 2019. So it's really only been 2 or 3 years. And I'm proud to say I didn't take any of those listings. My team did. And it's a team of 2. It's because in November and December, we got super intentional with showing up every day and tracking our numbers and fueling that pipeline and making sure the 8x8s are on point and making sure that the 10 days of value are on point. It's honestly just the lead generation model from the MREA showing up 90 days later. And when we look at it, we've got 5 closings set up in April and 4 right now pending in May.
Awesome. You know, I'm going to go down this question here, but before I even ask it, it's something that I often think of, question here, and I'll just pose it so you can let it sit there for a second, is okay, well, I love this, right? So you just built out an awesome infrastructure to allow you to focus on the goals every day. This is what I'm hearing you say, is that you said, all right, hey, I had a pattern interrupt. Hey, I was going this direction, and then wait a minute, had a question that caused reflection. So there's some forced reflection there that caused you to think, right? Obviously one of the most intelligent individuals here, right, that I've come across. And so when you give yourself time to think, great things happen, not much of a surprise there, right? So it gives yourself time to think. Then we go ahead and say, all right, hey, instead of focusing on all the other stuff in the world, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check in on my one core thing, right? The one thing. And so when you're saying like the 80-20, the market and more equals market elimination, what I heard from you there is what's the 20% of the 20% of the 20%. Right. And I'd say here's the other thing too that I noticed about you here too, Rick, is that identifying that, right, and saying yes to that, but then also putting yourself in a position where you almost can't say yes to the other stuff. Right.
This happened 10 minutes ago, right before this phone call. Someone says, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I was like, well, I'm not sure what's going on. I have an amazing fundraising charity event from 6 to 10. I was like, oh, I'm not going to go. He looked at me very shocked. So I got to even look at my calendar. Well, why not? It's a really good cause. I mean, I'm sure it's a good cause, but I know that my life is already pretty busy, and it's not going to be good for me to just instinctively, impulsively say it. And a lot of people have a hard time saying no to someone going, come to my charity event, and they'd at least want to go, well, let me look at it. And then,
They said maybe when they really wanted to say no.
As I walked away from the conversation, it was awareness of going, I had no problem saying no because it wasn't a planned event, and I can't allow the impulsive stuff to come on my calendar. Especially from 6 to 10, right? Because that's when I'm riding bikes with the kids. That's when I'm home, and that it's one thing to always say no to things. We can plan for things when they're planned because it's important for everything. But I don't see how that was helping me achieve the final week of first quarter goals. And so I didn't even want to look into it. It was a no, and maybe it could have been a great opportunity I didn't look into. Yet Gary Keller tells us the ability to say no is going to be what separates people from different levels of achievement.
Okay, you might have answered the question, which is a variation we just said there at the end there. Is it, okay, so you said earlier that it was a learned response here, a learned question of who can do it better, right? is saying no, was that a muscle that you had to work out here, or what, how did that evolve? Because I mean, like that was, you had conviction there. And my observation, just watching human beings, that's not always an easy thing. As in,
Mhm.
that's a really hard thing to do.
That, I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's the high D. I didn't even ask details. I didn't say where is it. I didn't say like, I wasn't interested in it, and I didn't feel bad saying no. And I have a high I, so it kind of threw me off guard as well. My high D took over there of going, if I didn't know about it, it's probably not that important to me. And I think one of the biggest things, and this is protect your productivity, and I'm referencing a lot of one thing here. And one of the thieves of productivity is the inability to say no. And when someone, it's someone else's 20% that they're trying to put on your calendar. And usually someone else's 20% ends up on our 80%. And if we have the impulse to say yes to everyone else's 20%, then we're saying no to our 20%.
Mm.
And when you have clarity around that, it's actually really easy to say no.
You know, one of the things that I took away here as you're kind of sharing this right beforehand is that you said a variation here of the clarity of your goal. All right. You said like, and I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but like in your mind, your thought process was, all right, hey, 6 to 10 o'clock, is that going to help me achieve my Q1 goal? Is that going to go ahead and help me deepen the relationship with the people I care about the most? That's what I heard. You didn't say it specifically like that, but I get what you're saying, because you said earlier, 3 kiddos, you're doing lots of coaching, right? So if it's in conflict with those two things, or if it's not in alignment, right? That's the problem here. Things that are in conflict, it's easy to say no to, but if here's our 20% and here's the opportunity, it's not just an alignment, those are the areas we fall into the trap, right? We say yes or maybe. But when you had ultimate clarity here of, hey, this is where I'm going, and it wasn't right in alignment, no, I'm out.
It's a distraction. And I don't want to sound like a robot, right? Because it is important to be social. And frankly, if my neighbor invites me over for dinner and game night tomorrow night, I'll probably say yes to that, because I'll have clocked out of work mode and I'll be in personal space mode.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Right. I
Right. So,
gotcha.
so it's not that I'm just so rigid and structured 24/7.
Mm.
That's not it. Truly, when I'm home, I'm home. And my wife asked me at lunch last week, would I ever go back into sales? And would I, or do I ever see myself? And my quick answer was no. And it's because I've already moved out of that job description. And if I take it back, I'm getting back in that job. No one says I want to go to level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then spend some time in 5 and 4, and then go. We're at level 6. When I'm saying level 6, if I don't know if Dean or anyone else listen to this, that's just the
But
MRE org chart.
yeah, can I describe that real quickly? Because, and I'm actually going to ask you a question around this. Keep going with it.
In the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, they talk about the organization chart. And level 1 is an agent, solo agent, me, myself, and I doing all. I categorize about 13 buckets of the job, from generate the lead to creating the flyer to converting it, closing it, to buying the closing gift, and everything in between.
Butcher
Right.
maker, candlestick maker.
So level 2 is when you hire your first executive assistant or administrative assistant. And 60% of what we do as a solo agent can be done by a non-licensed person. So right off the bat, if I'm working 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week, I should be able to give away 60% of my tasks. They will do it in 40 hours. Maybe I'm more efficient, or maybe they do more than I wasn't doing, which creates more time for me to do with whatever I want. Right. For most times, it's to do more of my money making activities: lead gen, lead follow up, go on appointments, negotiate. You should do it as such that now your admin needs some help, and you can divide them into a marketing, lead gen portion and an administrative contract to close portion. So you got your operations and your lead gen market. So whatever their strength is, keep them there, then go hire to their weakness. When I hired my first executive assistant, I had 2 top candidates. They both were opposite. One was social media, followers, influencers, understood hashtags, but never saw a P&L in her life. The other one was an executive assistant for 20 years, adult kids, and she had to go create a Facebook profile when she started with me. Right. And I had to go, which one is a better fit? I was better at social media, so I was able to support her and to fill up that gap. And our goal was, we're going to When you hire your second assistant, you go to level 3.
Yep.
Level 3 and level 4 happen within 90 days if you do it well. And here's how. You're by yourself, you get help. You and an assistant, that's a beautiful relationship. Like, honestly, it's kind of simple. All you're doing is you are the only salesperson, you're getting someone else to help clean up your messes. That's like being single and having a housekeeper. Like, life is simple there, right? When you hire the second assistant, and now you have someone dedicated to your marketing, to your social media, to your events, to your newsletters, that should make the phone ring more. The phone ring creates more lead opportunities. All of a sudden, I need help in the field as an agent. So within 90 days, you should be able to hire your next salesperson. That puts you to level 4. As you, and I'm just doing, I guess, a mini org chart class here, but a healthy growing team will always lead with back of house or always lead with admin, because you are that salesperson. It's an instinct that people are admin or are sales heavy because they deem it as cheaper, right? I don't have to pay them anything, but there's a cost associated with it, whether it's time. So when I say level 6 is when you've hired all of the day-to-day jobs out, and now I am overseeing and running the business. So I am never on contracts. I'm never on listing appointments. I don't go to home inspections. I don't go to appraisals. My team does. If there's a training opportunity, I'll jump in. I went to a listing walkthrough on Sunday. That's fine. It was to assist and support, have a training opportunity. But truly, when we say who owns the job is who you keep up at night, the only reason I know people's names at closing or anything else is because we've talked about it with the team.
Yep.
We're implementing an infrastructure now that every time there's a milestone with our clients, which is signed buyer's agency agreement or listing appointment, under contract and closing, they put a task on my command and I give that phone call. And that phone call is going, hey, John, heard you had a great appointment with Jennifer last night. That's fantastic. My name's Rick. Anything you need, this is my number. Excited to work with you. And then we're teeing up the promise at that point. We're teeing up referrals. We're teeing up Google reviews.
You know,
checking it.
keep going, yeah.
I checking it under contract and I checking at closing. So a lot of it is just them seeing the organization, them seeing the corporate structure. It puts Jennifer or Darren in a pedestal. It allows me to do the heavy lifting of asking for the referral or the Google review. And it just really, to me, it's kind of like when you go to your favorite restaurant and the owner comes by your table and says, thanks for coming again. I'm glad you're here. It just makes that experience that much better.
You know, like when you're sharing this with me here, the last part, it's kind of under the umbrella of quality assurance.
Sure.
Right. And so then this is your opportunity to say, hey, I'm here for you if anything goes wrong. You know, I'm the bat signal. And we expect things not to go wrong. As a matter of fact, we expect them to go this way. Here's the promise. And if it should go that way, we'd love to see referrals. That's how we know it's going that direction. Love that. I love how you perfectly you've given us one of the more practical success paths to what that looks like. Right. You know, and let me ask you here, there's going to be a number of people watching, and which, by the way, there's also Facebook Live that it's on here right now. And there's going to be others that are watching the future here. So they're going to be asking, as we've kind of gone over from this area here, they're going to be, because again, we started with, hey, we need to go get listings. And that goal was so big, but we also knew that 25 hours we're investing into a different business, and we've got a personal life too. So it's not a surprise that this conversation is weaving over to elimination. And one of the ways that we get leverage is systems, technology, and people, right? So if I'm in this position where I've got the stuff coming in, I've exhausted my systems, I've exhausted my technology, I want the people to come in. What's the piece of advice you'd give me if I was going from 1 to 2? What's the greatest lesson that you could share with me there? And then I'm gonna ask the same thing from 2 to 3.
I need you to repeat that so I can.
So level 1 to 2, right? So I love the way you put
levels.
this.
So
Yeah.
org chart, the levels. Okay.
Yeah. So like I love it. Like you said, I'm a single guy with a housekeeper, right? A single guy and then a single guy that gets a housekeeper. So what's the one thing that I got to, in order to make that jump work, right?
Yeah.
What do I need to make sure?
So first thing I'd say is, starting now, hire out the contract labor that doesn't actually have a fixed cost, transaction coordinator.
Okay.
from day one. When people ask me how to submit a DA for compliance, I don't know.
Didn't want to. Yep. Got it.
Day
Okay.
one, I've never done it. Leverage stuff that you can do right off the bat. Second is when you have a closing, just because you don't have an expense allocated towards a salary right now, have a sinking cost and start budgeting as if you do. So 30% of our gross income should be dedicated to expenses. If you're not spending that, don't consider it profit, consider it a savings account. So when you are ready, you don't get stuck and say, I would hire someone, but I just don't have the cash reserve.
Love it. And so at what point, and this is going to be subjective. So basically what I'm hearing you say there is that instead of having that mortgage shock, just start already including the mortgage shock in before you even have the mortgage, and then put that mortgage into a reserve. And this is the subjective account, but how much would you want in that reserve before you made the hire?
90 days minimum.
Right. Okay.
6 months if you need some insurance, but in 90 days, they should start paying for themselves.
Okay. So now take it from 2 to 3. What are the lessons I need to know there?
The lessons for budgeting is you gotta have a P&L from day one. If you intend to scale and grow your business, then don't start running a business when you get big, because you'll never get big because you're never running it like a business.
Oh, say it again.
If you intend to scale and get big, then do have. Go be the agent that operates like a business, which is tracking P&Ls, red light, green light. I told you it's nothing that's not written in the MREA, John. I guess I'm just year 2 of the proof of going, just implement this stuff. Be aware, track your numbers, track your revenue, track your expenses, make smart decisions around those 3 things. The advice, when should I hire? And I think that's a very personal question based on your unique skill sets, based on your market, based on your price point. Sometimes we hear there's a number, and the number stated in many classes is 24 to 36 units. 24 to 36 units should afford you enough to be able to hire someone at least part-time, if not full-time. Now, I know agents that can close 50 to 60 units and they have a high capacity. Now, maybe they're working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, but their lifestyle allows it, and that good on them, right? Maybe you don't have the high capacity. Maybe you don't know how to turn on the computer and you just hate everything about the technology and you need to leverage it out sooner and you're willing to take. So it's a very personal question. Here's going to be my answer, as you guys can subjectively answer for yourself. You've got 2 core jobs that we do in real estate. And I'm sure there's more, but I'm going to say these 2. One is going to be your top 20% as a realtor, which I said lead gen, follow-up appointments, negotiations, and growth. The second is take care of your customers. As soon as your schedule, you have to choose, am I going to do my lead gen or service my customers today? You're being spread too thin. And impulsively, what happens, because we are a customer-focused, customer-centric business, is people will ignore their lead gen and take care of that burning fire from that customer. And so the roller coaster then happens, because when you have 5 closings in 1 month and you have 3 of them happening this week and you're doing all the things and you're showing houses and you're in a market that we just got out of with multiple offers, you're constantly running around like a chicken with your head cut off. You don't have time to actually be proactive in your business because you're reactive with your current clients. And you have 5 closings this month and your pipeline is bleak and you've got nothing. And when you have nothing going on, then you've got nothing else. You spend all your time filling your pipeline back up and you hit this vicious cycle. And the more you do this cycle, the more you are programmed that you are inconsistent in your business, and it's scary to hire, because what if I have another bad couple of months? And you're programming yourself to go, it's too scary to hire. So the number 2 reasons people don't want to hire that first assistant is they don't have the reserves built up, or they don't trust themselves to have consistent production. So that would be how to get to level 1 to level 2. Let the business tell you when to hire. Don't let your emotions tell you when to hire.
Goes back to the tracking.
Go back to the tracking.
Well, no, which goes back to the tracking. Don't let your emotions go. Let your business tell you when to hire. Go back to the tracking, right? So what I heard you say through all of that is that the person you probably want to ask, or the tool you want to ask, is when you're ready, is probably going to be the P&L and your numbers.
Yeah. Let the business tell you when to hire.
Love it.
I love working in a 12-week year. So if 36 units a year is my number, then I made my first hire as soon as I closed 9 1/4. I closed 9 1/4. I was like, well, here we are. My business has told me it's time to grow.
Got it. Got it.
And every fear that should have set in November 2020 when I made my hire, and I had
Mhm.
actually never seen a December, January, February as a realtor because I was team leader, month 8, hired. In my first 3 months, when she made more money than I did, and my anniversary for cap rolled around January 1st, so I immediately took a 36% hit, and I was like, ugh. And then if you recall what happened March 2020, so I went from November, December, January, February, holy smokes, to then COVID hits, and every fear should have said bail, retreat. Instead, I'm going trust the numbers, trust the P&L, trust the process, double down. In 2020 is when we made top 500 in the Orlando area.
Okay, so I don't want this uh, to miss anybody here. What I took away from what you just said there is that the numbers that you had, that's what reinforced the confidence you needed, which is the superpower to get through that challenging time, right? Where like you gave it a pretty extreme approach there of like, hey, everything else said retreat, 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 right? But it could be even as small as, hey, that window of opportunity opens up, but man, I just didn't have that extra gumption to go through it, right? Those are the things that start to compound, right? And you're getting what I call ambushed, right? Instead of retreating and falling into the other enemy infantry, you just went through.
Yeah.
And it probably, by the way, it probably wasn't easy, was it?
Trust the models, trust the systems. I was just running the plays. It became easy when you had the plan and you just ran the playbook. If you overthink it, it becomes difficult. Get the plan that you trust, run the plays, trust the models. If
Okay.
90 days go by or 6 months go by and the models aren't working, pivot, reevaluate, right? Which we did a lot for our coaching program. But once you commit to it, go run the play. And then 90 days later, go evaluate it.
So I love this. We're way over time here, but do you have a few extra minutes? Because I just have a couple extra things. You're good?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time at 3L, leads, listings, leverage, right? So we've spent a lot of our time in the leverage side of things. We started the conversation with listings. I'm curious, right? There might be some folks out there that see a ray of sunshine coming through the clouds right now, that they see a pretty rainbow, and they're thinking, well, hey, you know what, the storm's out there, and they start falling into the trap of working with more and more and more buyers. What made you think here? Because when we focus on expansion, so I know you brought some focus to listings, not just buyers, which by the way, I know you've got buyers in your pending category here.
Yep.
So what made you focus on listings? Why is that the end all be all? Why is the debate over there for you?
This is where I say there's not a, we didn't do 90 listings, 90 days. We're a database sphere of influence focused. A lot of it is the call to action.
So you appraised your call, that you appraised your messaging.
I was going to say in the messaging, right? There's messaging, there's method, and the message is what are we saying? The method is we're saying it via email, via text, via phone call, via face-to-face. So the method is 6 different methods. The message is the same. And sellers choose agents, buyers choose houses.
Yeah.
If all we're doing is advertising houses, then we are attracting buyers. Sellers care about agent reputation, trust, and communication. We got that from Gary Keller at NAR. Does our messaging convey that? When we're having our conversations, a big pet peeve I have is as agents, even the greatest calling agents who call their sphere and call their database, they still play this incognito secret agent game. And they stick by the Ford. And I go, hey, John, how's the family? How's the occupation? How's the recreation? How's the dreams? Well, hey, man, just checking in. Glad things are well. Call me if I can ever help you out in anything. Okay. See you, buddy. And it becomes this very fun, warm, casual conversation. I think that's super sweet. But what it doesn't do is give
Here
you
comes the hammer.
a specific call to action that gives you data and insights as their realtor. And I encourage, if you guys are listening to this right now, look at your database and ask yourself, do you have them tagged as a renter or owner? Do you have them tagged as current investor or future investor? Do you have them tagged of when they're going to retire? My financial advisor is a good friend of mine. I say this example all the time. I've known him for 20 years. We went to college together. If he calls me on a Tuesday afternoon and doesn't talk about financial advice, it's a strange phone call. He's my financial advisor. So he called me up last week. My wife recently, she was let go, severance ended. He calls me up. We started talking about March Madness for 5 or 10 minutes. That was fun. Then he goes, hey, Rick, by the way, we need to make sure that we change Leslie. She no longer has her 401k, so we need to get her Roth IRA going back again. He talked to me about financial advice. When you're making your phone calls, you've got to talk about, curious, what are your real estate related needs this year? And if every day you've got it in the top left corner of your little screen right there, net plus one, it's the pipeline plus one report. Every day you find somebody who's thinking about selling in the next 2 or 3 years. And then once you find them there, I use the analogy of, it's like luggage at the airport. Person checks you in, puts it in a conveyor belt behind you, and then it just does its thing.
Hmm.
And as soon as you get someone to the pipeline report, have your systems be that conveyor belt. And it goes to the 8x8s, to the touches, to the events, to the pop-by, and let your system do the heavy lifting. In prepping for this call, I asked Jennifer, who's my agent, who started as my assistant. I was like, he's going to ask me how to get these listings, Jen. I was like, what? We don't have a niche. I was like, what do you think our niche is? And I had it in my head. And she's, for about 5 seconds, she goes, rehab systems. Like that's our niche. What's the Bosley team? The team that runs plays, because that's what the systems tell us to do. And we let command dictate our tasks because we have smart plans set up. We let the pipeline report and opportunities dictate our frequency and intensity of how we follow up with people. And when we talk with people, and this is Jason Abrams inspired, we give them useful and needed stuff and not generic and boring stuff.
Give me an example there.
A big thing in Florida is the Save Our Homes Act in 2008. And that's portability for your homestead. I don't know if you guys have that where you're at. You guys have that?
Mm-hmm.
You guys have homestead, right? Yes, homestead. So that's a $50,000 deduction. In 2008, the Save Our Homes Act, because this is when the crisis happened everywhere, but they said you can actually port over your homestead savings. So you buy a house for 100,000, it's now worth 400, but you're only taxed at 120. You've got $280,000 in portability savings. When you move, if you don't port that over, the new taxes don't adjust. And the tax appraiser does not go out of the way to tell you about that. So one of the listings that we took, that we ended up double siding, that we are competing with a neighborhood expert. We said, by the way, your mother has been in this home since this time. I see she's homesteaded. We need to make sure that we do portability so that they're going, wait, say this again. And it was a $3,000 a year savings every year. And that completely elevated us up. When you get a message like that, you can spend the next 90 days talking to your database and go through your entire DTD2 with that message. It was in our newsletter, it was on our social media drip, and it was on our regular phone calls. How's the family, occupation, recreation, dreams? Hey, fantastic, good to hear. Before I hang up, I need to ask you a few questions that could save you thousands of dollars in taxes. Got a minute? Of course. When did you buy your home? Are you homesteaded? Are you planning on moving? Here's what you've got to do when you do. When that happens, call me. Now we're talking real estate. Real estate's what I do for a living. Understanding that you went to Breckenridge to go skiing on spring break is not what I do for a living. So stop talking about that so much. Build the rapport, get into acquaintance, get on with what you do for a living, because that's how you're useful and needed.
Love it.
I could preach on this all day, John. I'm passionate about this.
I can tell. I can tell. You know, and here's the thing is that we have a lot of call reluctance out there, and I'd argue that it's not call reluctance, it's value deficiency, right? And so that what you just brought up there is that, you know, when that person that's looking to sell, they're going to be thinking to themselves, hey, this isn't an expense or an investment to call. Actually, it is an investment. Isn't an expense to call, Rick. It's an investment because I'm going to get a return in the form of my tax savings. Right. And that's a higher level of trust than, hey, I can go ahead and market your home for this or whatever. I love it, man. I love it. Okay. Like you said, we could go on forever. And I'm going to ask you my cleanup question here. What's a question that I didn't ask you that I should have? Or what's the one thing that you want to leave us with here as we bring this intense focus to listings? Right. But most everybody that's going to be watching this has brought an intense focus, and it might have been a recent intense focus, by the way, to listings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reasons why we want listings, and it says it out of the book, is we can get 1 to 2 more transactions from every listing. And we are seeing that. So one of the reasons that we have 9 pendings in the next 2 months because we took 5 listings in February. And when I look at our sources of business that we've closed, 30, almost 40% have come from listings. That won't happen unless you have what I call a listing protocol. When you get your listing, you don't just go on autopilot. It's the golden letters. It's the double open house. It's the call your pipeline. It's figure out the landing page with the QR code. It's do the things. The listing is the greatest opportunity for us to go out there and attract more buyers and sellers. Changing the mindset that an open house, some people think an open house is a way to attract buyers. And when a seller would walk in, they would frame him as a looky-loo or a nosy neighbor. If a seller's walking in, more times than not, they're not a nosy neighbor. They're a future seller who's trying to compare your house versus theirs. And every time someone walks in your open house, their job interview is starting in that moment. And the job interview gets cultivated with your follow-up 8x8 afterward. Your listing focus, because the listing is the snowball opportunity that rolls downhill and it keeps growing and growing and growing. That's why you focus on your listings.
I love it. Let me ask you this here. So as I'm watching this, and if I don't fully understand the whole concept here, I might start getting distracted here and might start saying, all right, hey, I'm going to go into my deep dive of the systems building out to get the 1 to 2 more listings, right? I'm going to ask you, is this something that if I'm the butcher, baker, candlestick maker, would you suggest I bring my attention to listings, get that up to where my P&L, my numbers are telling me that I can bring on more support? Have them, what would they do that? Would my team put that system together, and then do I go get a driver, or how does, give me the
all right? So you said butcher, baker,
ideal
candlestick
linear.
maker. So if you're a solo agent,
Yeah.
And
Let's just take from there, because there's people that are at level 2 and 3 that they're still really at level 1, but they say they're at 2 and 3 based on your definition of, am I thinking about it at night? If I'm thinking about it at night, I'm still owning it, which would tell me I'm really at level 1.
In the history of every realtor who's successful in interview, they will tell you the sphere of influence is their number 1, if not number 2 source of business.
Yeah. Good point.
Go deep with your sphere of influence, adding value, getting data, getting insights, actually understanding how you can service them, and ask them questions that they're not thinking about. Attract raving fans who will turn into listings. I talked 4 people out of listing their house last year, John, because I was helping them build wealth, and said, what if you just did a cash out refi, turn this into a rental, and took that and went and bought your other house?
Yeah. You got 4 raving fans.
He called me because he wanted to know if his Rocket Mortgage refi was a good rate. That's where that phone call was from, which I love that he thought of me as a checks and balance guy. But I said, time out. What if? We created a buyer out of it. I had another electrician. He's like, you know what? I've been watching the news. It's time to sell because the market's going to crash. If you really want to do that, I love that you called me. But in the history of wealthy people, no one said I made my wealth by selling all my real estate assets. So I'm talking people into holding it and building wealth, and that truly is not what attached to the outcome. Go be a value proposition to your sphere of influence. Be different, be useful, be needed. You'll attract the right listings. Be cognizant that when you're talking to people, you are asking them, what are their real estate related needs? How can you serve them? That's the missing part, John. People say they're lead generating. No, they're not. They're doing a bunch of care calls, but you're not lead generating. An appointment's not an appointment unless you ask that person to hire you. And I would argue a lead generation is not a lead generation unless you talk about real estate. Otherwise, it's just a social call. So don't overthink the magic system or the magic script for it. If you don't have anything, go figure out how to build your database. If your database isn't large enough, I bet you can figure out some community event this weekend to go add 200 people to your database. Go spend $500, sponsor 10 at a farmer's market, and give away some Amazon gift cards, and add 200 people to your database. Whatever's stopping you from doing, if only I could have this, then go do that. Then if that's done and you've still got to go get more time, yeah, I'm going to tell you, go out there and call some FSBOs and expireds. except do it 8 weeks in a row. Stop swinging for the fences one and done and then calling it done. If you call, just like a farm, you shouldn't farm a neighborhood 1 month and then stop. Well, FSBOs are your farm as well then. So go create what does your 8-week or 6-month farm look like for your FSBOs. And until they sell or until they tell you to remove me from your list, they get it every Monday morning phone call. And I've used our last conversation that we had on Monday, John, with 75 hard in both of the masterminds I've done this week since then. And I've incorporated a little bit of going, whether it's a 75 hard right off the bat or it's part of our 15th day protocol.
Same thing.
Everything that we know we could do more of that would give us the greatest second quarter in the history of our business, we are capable to do it. It's our mindset, limiting beliefs, and excuses that are stopping us from doing it. Write that down and decide what's more important. All the sacrifices that you have to make to do it, or what potentially that business and earning will give you. And that's a decision, because our bodies can handle whatever our mind wants to put at it. Our mind's what slows us down, not our bodies.
I don't know any other questions to follow that up, man.
It's mindset, run the play. And if the play doesn't work, change your playbook.
Can I anchor what you just said there, though? Because I think that this is probably one of the most profound thing a litany of notes that I took here is that you said, write down the limiting beliefs, the sacrifices, and then also write down the benefits and the opportunity and see which one's more valuable. And I'm paraphrasing there. So correct me on it. What was it?
And I was paraphrasing. You got me on a soapbox. You've got to decide what's the stronger argument. What's on the other side of this work, or what's in your current state?
It's basically fear versus opportunity. Write down all the fears, write down the opportunity, and make a decision.
Which one are you more emotionally attached to?
Love it, man. All right, brother. That was awesome.
Cool.
Hey,
Cool, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank
Before
you.
I let you go, I want to make sure that I know you're going to be helping a lot of people through this conversation. And I know when we help people, I want to make sure that when people help us, we want to help them. So what's the market you serve again?
Central Florida. So Orlando and company.
And what's the best way to get a hold of you when I've got some opportunity down there?
The best is to text my phone number at 321-277-5791. In addition, some support outside of referrals is that coaching and training program. We've got a podcast everywhere that podcasts are. So if what I said kind of spoke to you, then check out the podcast, Real Estate Made Simple. Love for you guys to jump in there and subscribe to that. Got a YouTube that we're building out for it as well. So that's a way, again, it keeps me sharp as a business leader just to be able to teach it and share it and absorb it. So those are the two ways we'd love to help your clients. And in the meantime, every Thursday morning, we get a new episode dropping.
Man, I love it. Awesome stuff. Appreciate you, Rick. Anything you need, We're here for you. Guys, let's make it a great week.
Thanks, brother. See you.
Take care.
Hey, thanks for sticking around and listening to the full thing. And I'd love to hear any feedback that you did have, some of the insights, wisdom, or any questions. I want to be accessible for you guys. The best way to do it is comment on the thread below. You can ask a question, or my personal cell phone is 321-277-5791. We do drop a new episode on podcasts everywhere, and also YouTube and Facebook every Thursday. So if you like this content, make sure you follow us on Thursdays, and also TikTok, Instagram Reels, and all those shorts coming out every day. So find us on social media, give us a follow. Until then, thanks for listening. This is Rick Bosley, making real estate simple. Take care.